business days, the box of Converse, Chucks, clearly your size, what you ordered, it's your package. There's no doubt about it. It's your package. But there's something wrong with the delivery man. The UPS man, let's say he's intoxicated, he's drunk. Or let's say you catch him on his phone, something that's really bad and outlandish. Would an intellectual, not an intellectual, someone with just a sound mind, would you reject your package because of the state of the delivery man? It's your box of sneakers, no doubt about it. For sure, this is what I ordered. But the delivery man, for argument's sake, is messed up. Would somebody with any sense say, I don't want the sneakers anymore? Nobody in their right mind, Muslim, non-Muslim, man, woman, nobody will say these aren't the shoes that I ordered. So for argument's sake, let's say, for argument's sake, why do you have to believe that something was wrong with the Prophet's marriage with Aisha at 9 years old? What about the rest of his religion? Is there anything that's positive, that makes sense? Groundbreaking proof after proof after proof. The heavens and earth, Jews, Christians, hereafter, etc. And you're going to focus on the fact that he was a pedophile. You're not someone who respects your intellect. Because the person who respects his or her intellect will say, you know what? It's difficult for me to accept this. That's a problem. 9 years old, 12 years old, 13, 9 is different. In Arabia, so on and so forth. But how can Islam be false? And it talks about Jesus in detail, Moses in detail, the creation of the heavens and earth in detail, resurrection in detail, proof after proof after proof for Allah's oneness, Allah's perfection. In the other religions, how can Islam be false? So I think that a lot of times we have to, that's what we call to sucker someone in. I'll agree with you on this point, but now what about this other point?
Right.
You have 10 things for you, 1 against you. Anybody with common sense would say, I'll take the 9 and just swallow the 1. Either as they say. So that's common sense. Let alone the fact that we can give them the answers, how the Prophet married her, her parents, etc. That's first and foremost. Secondly, I would say, what happens to a young girl or young boy when they're sexually abused? What happens to them? How does their life, how do they live their lives? Do they become great scholars? Do they become people who have, I'll give you one thing, confidence, one word, confidence. It's a proven fact that those who are sexually abused, who are molested, who are raped, rather those who are exposed to explicit things, sexual things that are explicit, pornography at a young age, when they grow up, they lack self-esteem. It's proven fact. They lack self-esteem. They have terrible confidence. So, Chanel mentioned, Osama mentioned, you mentioned that this woman who was relatively young clearly said that Umar ibn al-Khattab was wrong. And Hudayfa ibn al-Yaman was wrong. And Abdullah ibn Umar was wrong. The Prophet ﷺ, he never said that the deceased Muslim will be punished because of his family members crying over him. He never said that. This is Umar, the one who had divine inspiration from Allah. The one who was with the Prophet ﷺ from the early days. The one that the Prophet ﷺ said we never prayed in public until Umar accepted Islam. We didn't mix salat in public until he was a Muslim.
I think, Afwan, this is an excellent point, but you have to remember that many of our youth here, they don't know what you're talking about when you say the dead being punished. Maybe you have to elaborate a little bit more and not assume that they know that Aisha was able to take the other position. Because
in Bukhari Muslim, the Messenger of Allah says, إِنَّ الْمَيِّتَ لَا يُعَذَّبُ بِبُكَاءِ أَهْلِهِ عَلَيْهِ. He says that the deceased Muslim, not even the deceased Muslim, the deceased shall be punished because of his family members crying and wailing over him. So some of the ulama, they interpret the hadith to mean this, and it means that. He taught them to cry, he encouraged them to cry. He didn't teach them not to cry, not to wail. But Aisha radiallahu anha, she said that Umar radiallahu anhu made a mistake. That's not what the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. He didn't say that. وَلَا تَزِرُ وَازِرَةٌ وِزْرَ أُخْرَى. As Allah says in the Quran, and no bearer of burden shall bear the burdens of another. So Aisha, she's used as a proof to state that this is impossible for the Prophet to have said this statement. That someone who's dead is going to be punished in his or her grave because of what another human being is doing. She said, that's wrong. She said, that's wrong. That's in brief. So therefore, my point is, if she was molested and abused, how could she have such confidence and esteem to lock horns and butt heads with these big makers Sahaba? As the narration states, she says, anyone who tells you that the Prophet urinated standing up, then don't believe him, she said. Don't even believe him. He's not telling the truth. He's mistaken at best, if not a liar. Hudayfa ibn Yaman, radiallahu anhu, he said, Aisha, our mother, with all due respect, you were in the house, putting on your gold, wearing makeup, combing your hair, when we were out fighting with the Prophet ﷺ, traveling, waging wars, riding horses and camels, shooting arrows and spears. You were prettying yourself, so you didn't see everything that he did. In other words, he said that she was wrong. So the point I'm trying to get to is, it's a proven fact that a woman who's abused and molested and sexually punished does not grow up to have that confidence and self-esteem. So it's impossible, literally, it's intellectually impossible for that marriage, no matter what, whether you accept it or reject it, to be called pedophilia. Impossible. If she was molested and raped by the other then she would have lived a life of misery, of torture, and of horror.
Absolutely.
And we don't have to go and mention example after example. Sports, players, athletes, Hall of Famers, movie stars, they live a life of fame and fortune and prestige. And he said, I remember I read this years ago, he was inducted into the Yankee Hall of Fame. He says, my life was miserable. He says, I never enjoyed a day that I played baseball. All of the money, all the wars, I lived in hell, he said, because I was molested when I was in the Catholic Church.
Wow.
So how did Aisha grow up, as he said, to be a scholar of medicine, of science? Rather, in our culture, the Hadith culture, the men from the Tabi'in, not the women, the men, would go to Aisha and they would ask her for the isnad, for the chain, for the hadith, and she would tell them, she would give them the hadith. She was molested right at the age of 9, not 10, not 12, 9 years old. That's a delicate age.
Abu Musa al-Ashari, he said that we never ما أشكل علينا شيء من الدين إلا ذهبنا إلى عائشة ووجدنا عندها علما. That we never found a problem, some ambiguity in the deen that we didn't understand, except that we went to Aisha and we found that she had some knowledge about it. And so to his point, for you young brothers and sisters, to help you strengthen your argument, to learn how to defend your religion. Now we literally, alhamdulillah, these brothers are giving you some tools, some jewels, some gems that you can take with you to help you in your argument, in your defense of our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That if in fact this was pedophilia and Aisha was taken advantage of, number one, that says a lot about her parents, Ruman and Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu anhuma. That it says a lot about them, that they would marry their daughter off. Because Aisha didn't marry herself to the Prophet ﷺ. That wasn't their society. Their society, as Aisha mentioned in the Hadith, mentioned in Sahih Bukhari, that marriage used to be 4 types. And she went on to mention the 4 types of marriage. And the one, she said, was the marriages that we know of today, where a man goes to the parents of the woman and contracts marriage. So that marriage between Aisha and the Prophet ﷺ, she didn't marry herself. He didn't just take her in marriage. So if you say that was pedophilia, then what does that say about her parents who consented to that? They were okay with their 9-year-old daughter being taken advantage of, throwing her into a situation. So it's important that as Muslims we don't buy into these arguments and we don't, we seek knowledge of these things so that we can strengthen our iman, so we can protect our faith. Because all you need to do is leave a crack in the door for shaitan and he'll bust it wide open. All you need to do is leave a crack. The Prophet ﷺ said, يَأْتِي الشَّيْطَانِ إِلَىٰ أَحَدِكُمْ فَيَقُولُ مَنْ خَلَقَ هَذَا فَيَقُولُ اللَّهُ فَيَقُولُ مَنْ خَلَقَ هَذَا فَيَقُولُ اللَّهُ فَيَقُولُ مَنْ خَلَقَ اللَّهُ. He said the shaitan comes to one of you and says to you, who created this? And you say, Allah. Who created that? And you say, Allah. Here, he's taking you on a journey. But you don't know where the ma'al, you don't know where the journey is going to end up at. So you entertain these things. Allah created that. Allah created that until shaitan says, well, who created Allah? And then you stopped. And at that very moment, you've left a crack in the door only for shaitan to open it wide open. So don't leave cracks in your deen. If something is a problem for you, go out and seek knowledge, ask people of knowledge so that you can get clarity on these issues, so you're not cornered by your professor or non-Muslims who may be articulate, or even other Muslims who may think that they are articulate enough to explain why this means that, there's something wrong with our religion. So these are just some of the things that I think that, what was mentioned here was so beautiful, so eloquently put. so articulated in such a way where everyone can understand, and I'm sure, hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, no one should have any doubts. I'm going to open the floor now for questions to our panelists, inshallah ta'ala. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to ask any one of our guests your questions, inshallah ta'ala.
Can I take 2 mics?
We'll just rotate this way. Anyone have any questions you want to ask, whether related to this subject or any other misconceptions that you may have heard or you need clarity on? Yes, right here. Can you hold the mic up?
Okay, so there are some, so you're saying that you need context to understand certain things in the Sirah or misconceptions in what people perceive to be in Islam. Now, what if there are people that say that hadith, or the things that was recorded of the time of the Rasul ﷺ, is just in relation to the context of that time and is not applicable today? Or it's just like what people say, well, this is just something that I've heard that I don't believe in, but I just want to know how to retaliate. That it's just a bunch of men trying to basically record and maintain a patriarchal society.
So basically, the collection of hadith that we have is just basically perpetuates this patriarchal society that they lived in. So all of what we have of information that has been recorded and documented is only perpetuating that culture of male chauvinism and patriarchy. Is that the question? Is that the question?
Yeah.
Okay. Who wants to handle that?
Well, let me say first of all that in actuality, there are some hadith, there are some ayahs of the Quran that if you look at them on face value, they are a bit problematic. They could be a bit problematic. So the scholars of Islam came, as I told you guys earlier, and they dealt with these issues. No stone has been left unturned by the ulama of Islam. And there's so much specialization in knowledge and the branches of knowledge. What freaks me out as a revert Muslim is how one of us from our community, young person, old person, whatever, he doesn't know his elbow from his ankle bone in this religion. And he thrust himself in the arena to say, I don't accept that, I don't accept this, I reject this, I reject that. And the person doesn't know if the noon as-sakin were to hit him in his head. He doesn't know that's the noon as-sakin. And he rejects the sunnah in its totality. And he brings these arguments and these misunderstandings that just are clear indications, hey, something is wrong with you. You don't know enough about your religion. So feel okay with saying, I don't want to be quiet. So as it relates to this, Allah mentioned in the Quran about himself, وَمَا كَانَ رَبُّكَ نَسِيًّا. Allah wasn't forgetful. Allah didn't forget. This religion that he sent down over 1400 years ago, he allowed certain things like being married to women from Ahlul Kitab. The Prophet said that the Jews and the Christians split into 72 sects, 73 sects. He knew that there were different sects. Ahlul Kitab, you can marry, provided the girl is not doing movies and so forth and so on. So a person comes now with all of this stuff. No, these are the new Christians of today. So that's a different time, and this is a different place. So you can't do this particular thing and that thing. And these ayahs and these ahadith, all they're doing is just maintaining the status quo of before. So people are coming with these types of arguments. I think the issue really goes back, first and foremost, for me to deal with what you're asking, what you're saying is, we need to relax a little bit in regards to knowing our position, knowing our abilities, first of all. Second of all, there are always explanations that are plausible and they're easy to take on board for the person who has a clear heart. For everything that may be problematic for the person in Islam, what is from the mushkil, those ayat and ahadith that are hard to understand. The man came to the masjid. He said, Ya Rasulullah, can I kiss my wife while I'm fasting? He said, yes. The companions witnessed that. Another man came in, asked the same question after him. Can I kiss my wife while I'm fasting? He said, no. Not a single companion said, oh, let me get rid of this sunnah. Look at these
hadith. Just give me the Quran. I don't want anything else. You see how this Quran refutes the sunnah is like this hadith? Instead, they did what Allah told them to do. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Ask those who know if you don't know. They say, Ya Rasulullah, that man came and he asked the question. He came and he asked the same question. You gave different answers. He said, as for that one, he's a sheikh. He's older. He can take care. He can handle himself. As for this one over here, he's young. I'm afraid if I allow that for him, it'll lead to the next thing. So he put the whole situation into context with a plausible explanation, right then and there. But do you see how the companions dealt with it? As for today, I made hajj with people this year. I made hajj with people who were saying, just give me the Quran, don't give me the Sunnah. And yet, we stood in line for 3 hours to kiss the black stone, and there's nothing in the Quran about that. And the other one was going crazy to drink Zamzam water. There's nothing in the Quran about that. And on and on and on and on. It's just people who are a bit confused.
Well, I would go as far as to say, because it seems like that's a more feminist approach to say that. When we start using terms like patriarchal, matriarchal, that's a feminist dialogue. And I would go as far to say that, yes, absolutely, that Islam does promote patriarchal system of family. Absolutely. Putting the man as the head of the household, absolutely. I don't make any excuses for that. And one of the things that we can't do is, we should never be on defense in Islam. We never allow somebody to put you on defense. Meaning that we allow people to bring up their dialogues and their discussions into our discussion in Islam and put us on defense. And say, well, no, it's not. If it's not a patriarchal system, then what is it in Islam? What is it? Is not the man the head of his household? Is not the man accountable and responsible for whatever happens in the household? Does not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put the man at the forefront of the household? الرجال قوامون على النساء. Does not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say, well, الرجال عليهن درجة? That the men, they have a degree of authority and responsibility over them. So yes, it is a patriarchal system, and I don't make any excuses for that. And I mean, if it's not, then it's a matriarchal system where the woman is at the head of the household, or there is no head of the household. There's only 3 ways this can go. Either the man is at the head of the household, the woman is at the head of the household, or there's no head of the household. You know, and this is what they want to do. They want to put Muslims on defense in terms of their religion. We can't make any excuses for that. It is what it is. I don't know if that answers your question. Yes, next question. Sheikh Hatton.
Mashaykh, mashallah, they made very good points about the issue of pedophilia and the issue of like the womanizer argument. I just wanted to add like one thing to the pedophilia.
Can we bring a chair up here for you, please?
No,
Please, Sheikh.
No, I'm good here.
Bless us with your presence.
I know, I'm good here.
We want everyone to see you, plus we want it to be recorded, please.
I just wanted to say about the pedophilia. If you are, because of my specialty, so I just need, if there are any physicians here in this crowd, are there any physicians in the crowd? Any physicians in the crowd? Huh?
You're a nurse, come on.
Where? Oh, sit down? Oh. No, I just wanted to ask if there are any physicians in the crowd. There is one? Okay, oh, he's a pediatrician in fact. What is the lowest age of puberty? The lowest age at which a woman reaches puberty? Normal age. It actually is as low as 8, and in textbooks they will tell you that if a woman of a Caucasian descent started puberty at 8, that would not be late. And for an African American woman or girl, if she starts at age 7, they say that this would not be pathological. You do not need to work her up, right? You don't need to do a workup if a woman starts puberty at age 8. Well, what is the last age at which a woman could reach puberty? what is the, basically, after which you start to look into primary amenorrhea, menarche, not puberty only, but menarche. It is 16. And if you go back, so what is the range from 8 to 16? So a 9-year-old could have reached puberty, could be post-pubertal. Basically, she is ready according to God, not according to the legislature of this city or that city that decided that the age should be 14. In the USA, in some states, the lowest age for marriage is 14, and in others it's 18. So here, if this is the border, here it is child molestation, here you are a law-abiding husband.
Right, exactly. Very good point. Very good point.
But in Islam, it's about puberty. That is why the scholars say that he should not be allowed to consummate the marriage until she is capable, emotionally, physically capable. So the issue is an issue of puberty. Like I said, and go back and check it out. So the lowest age for puberty is 8, and the highest age is 16. A 9-year-old could be heavier. A normal 9-year-old could be heavier and taller than a normal 14-year-old. Could be heavier and taller because she reached puberty earlier. The second, there's so much to say about this issue, by the way. There are 17 good points, and it is on my website, the answers to this particular issue. But the other issue that is important to say also is, what was the lowest age? Now the lowest age of consensual sex, or the lowest age for marriage here in America, varies from state to state. But 200 years ago, not 1400 years ago, 200 years ago, what was the lowest age for consensual sex in the state of California? 1800. What was the lowest age for consensual sex?
13.
10. And go back and check it out. So within 200 years, the culture changed so much that if you think of a 10-year-old now, it would be like crazy. So that's the one thing. The other thing with regard to the womanizer argument, you have to use argumentation through ilzam. Ilzam meaning to refer the person back to his own value system, to judge his argument according to his belief system. If it disqualifies the Prophet from conveying the message that he married 9 women, how could they include within the Bible the Sons of Solomon, who married 300 women and had 700 concubines? How could they include in the very Bible that they are saying from God a message that came to them through David? Forget about what they called him, King David, messenger, this or that. They are including a message that came from God to them through him, even though David alayhi salam had 100 women. So if it disqualifies, how could it be possible? So that is the idea of the Islamophobes' glass house. But I want to tell you one thing, that it is not just that. It is not just that what they have what we have. So don't throw stones at me, because you also have a glass house. What we have is protected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For every text they criticize, we have a perfect explanatory context, but they don't have explanatory context for every text. This issue of jihad that I just wanted to glance over quickly in my speech. For every text we have a perfect explanatory context, but how could you provide an explanatory context for killing the children and the infants and everything that breathes? For killing the suckling infants.
Not to cut you off. You was on the roll though. We want to follow you on that journey, Sheikh, but we want to give some other people an opportunity to ask. But Jazakallah khair, we appreciate that. Allah Jazak khair. Have another question? Yes.
Give him a mic. Take his baby.
So, Jazakallah for all your explanations, particularly on the issue of pedophilia. Now, all the explanations that you have are very solid, perhaps due to my own deficiency in understanding, or perhaps because of the society I grew up in. I'll be honest with you, it's still strange to me when you tell me, okay, a 40-year-old or plus guy married a 9-year-old girl. And it's something that, anybody who's a product of our society is going to have to grapple with. So my question is it inappropriate, and this should happen, please feel free to comment on this, is it inappropriate or is it blasphemous to start a conversation like that by saying, yes, in our society, a 40-year-old man having a relationship with a 9-year-old girl is considered pedophilia. But in that society, in that time, then going back to the points that you gentlemen brought up, which is, in that society, all of our ancestors, my ancestors, your ancestors, every historical figure that was the norm for them when the life expectancy was 20 years old. They had to do things differently. But, especially since an attack on the Prophet is really an attack on Islam today, and starting by trying to explain that context without at least saying that, no, as Muslims we don't believe, and if it's true that we don't believe that, in our society today that's an acceptable relationship would be a good place to start.
Well, that's a good point that you bring up, and that is that when you're speaking to people in the context in which they live, obviously you would sound crazy if you said, starting your conversation, that a 40-year-old man marrying a 9-year-old girl is not pedophilia. All right, you would sound crazy in this society, in this current atmosphere that we live in right now. You would sound crazy if you said that it wasn't. But also, when you validate that argument by saying that it is pedophilia, then you put the Prophet ﷺ in a very precarious situation because he did do that. So it's you have to be careful in how you begin that argument, that you don't validate something that will turn around and invalidate a part of our religion. Because once you say to them, yes, it is pedophilia in our society, but, and then you make istidrak, you try to go back and explain, you put the Prophet ﷺ in a box, and now you're trying to go back and take him out the box. So you don't want to validate something and then turn around. You just explain that things change, societies change, the context in which the word pedophilia changed. When, as he just mentioned, in American society, just 200 years ago, right? Many of our grandparents, especially those of us who are, indigenous, Muslim, indigenous people here in America, African Americans, Native Americans, just 200 years ago, right here in America, many of our grandparents, were pregnant at 13, 14 years old, which, shows that was something that was normal in that time. All right, so I think that before we go to validating and invalidating anything when we start the argument, we start off by explaining the context in which pedophilia is defined. In this society, in the way that it's viewed in this society, this time, pedophilia may be looked at as like this, but 200 years ago, it didn't look like that. Before you even get to the argument with the Prophet ﷺ. On top of that, not everything, this is a principle in our religion, not everything that is permissible is encouraged. The Prophet ﷺ did things for many reasons. Just because it's permissible doesn't mean that it's encouraged for us to do it. The Prophet ﷺ, marriage, أَبْغَضُ الْحَلَالِ إِلَى اللَّهِ الطَّلَاقُ. The most hated thing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made halal is divorce. Divorce is permissible in Islam. Is it something that is encouraged? No, it's not encouraged. Divorce is not encouraged. So not everything that is permissible is something that we are encouraged to do. The Prophet ﷺ married Aisha at 9. Can we recall any other incident in the history of Islam where something like that took place? If in fact you could go through the seerah and find some random situations, those are isolated incidents. There are exceptions to the rule, but not the rule. Was it the rule in your society that men married women at 9 years old? No, that was not the rule. Right now in Saudi Arabia, it is very common for women to be married at 16 years old. At 16 years old, she's considered in her prime. Saudi men have a problem marrying a woman 28, 29, 30 years old. They consider the women in that age range to be old. Absolutely. Consider yourself blessed in this. So, I mean, it differs from place to place, time to time, so I don't think that we should start the argument off with validating that point and in turn around and invalidating the Prophet ﷺ. But I think that we should explain the context of pedophilia and how it should be viewed, and then explain how that was done during their time. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. I want to thank you all for listening. I want to thank you all for participating, inshallah ta'ala. We have time for one more.
I just like to add to Mufti Munir's self-esteem argument about Aisha questioning the Sahaba. I encountered a hadith, and you guys can correct me, inshallah, about Aisha actually objecting to the Prophet's statement about the shuhada not having, questionability and going straight to Jannah, and she objected with the higher authority of the Quran by saying, وَمَنْ أُوتِيَ كِتَابَهُ بِيَمِينِهِ فَسَوْفَ يُحَاسَبُ حِسَابًا يَسِيرًا. So I just wanted to just bring that into light. You guys can correct me if that's maybe a da'if hadith, or maybe you guys don't think that's a valid comment.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala rasulillah, amma ba'd. As Abu Usama mentioned, Dr. Hatim also mentioned that everything that could possibly be or is actually polemic or problematic has been answered over 1,000 years ago. Before there was Cambridge and Oxford, before there was something called Orientalism, before there was Ignaz Gozar and Joseph Scott and these people, the ulama of Islam had a detailed, refined system of that which is called al-mushkilat, whether it's a hadith or verse. A verse or hadith that is polemic is problematic. It's problematic. Allah tells us in the Quran al-Kareem in several places, they will not be spoken to on that day. Allah will not speak to them. Allah will not address them. And we find rather in one surah itself that Ar-Rahman will ask them. We will ask the messengers. We will ask those people. One verse says Allah will speak, another verse says, فَلَنَسْأَلَنَّ الَّذِينَ أُرْسِلَ إِلَيْهِمْ وَلَنَسْأَلَنَّ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. He says, indeed, we will speak to them, we will ask them. So the concept of something that's problematic, first and foremost, is nothing wrong with it initially. This is a very crucial point. I repeat, the concept of you finding something to be problematic, it doesn't make too much sense, I don't understand, I have a problem with it, initially isn't too bad. Abu Zubayr mentioned a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said, تَصَدَّقْنَا فَإِنِّي أُرِيتُكُنَّ أَكْثَرَ أَهْلِ النَّارِ. He said, give charity. He spoke to the women. He said, give charity. Because I have been shown that you're the majority or the greatest amount of the denizens of the fire. What did the woman say? She says, أَيَكْفُرْنَ يَا رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. She says, do they make disbelief? Why are we so abundant in the hellfire? In other words, the woman from the Sahaba, she felt what the Prophet ﷺ saying as what? Problematic. It was mushkil. She didn't quite understand. It didn't quite make total sense to her in the beginning. So the first principle is nothing wrong with finding something to be problematic in the beginning. Step one. Step two is you have to find what? A answer, a response. Not just any response, not just any